Hey, good day. My name is Lorraine Sithole, and as you know, I'm a huge lover of books and all things literary for our toddlers as well as youth and tweenies. And today I am not disappointing. I am bringing you The Haunted Library, a new Anansi mystery from Bontle Senne, who is no stranger to writing for our young ones, and also the celebrated illustrator Mogau Kekana. They are both here. Hi guys, how are you doing today?
Hello, very well.
Hi, Lorraine.
All the better for seeing your beautiful face today. I've missed you.
Thank you so much. Before we get into the book, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Mogau as well as Bontle. Bontle writes stories for 9 to 18-year-olds, which is fantastic. We get a lot of books for toddlers and very little on the tweenies. So I'm very excited that that is the route she has taken over the past couple of years. Her stories have been published by Funza Literary Trust and cover to cover. Her Afrocentric series is available in English as well as in isiZulu. One of her chapter books, A Monster at Midnight, was shortlisted for the 2014 Golden Baobab for African Children's Literature. And her books are available in major bookstores here in South Africa as well as online. So if you are still wondering what to get the young ones in your life this Christmas, look no further than this haunted library. Joining us on this video is Mogau Kekana, who went and did the lovely illustrations. Mogau, when I picked this up, I got vibes of Betty and Veronica. I mean, I came of age when the Archie series was a huge thing. And when I saw this cover, I was like, oh my God, you are taking me back. You are taking me back. Welcome,
Pleasure, mate.
guys. And congratulations as well. This is such a beautiful story. And it is not only for 8 to 18-year-olds. I have a young son who has been reading it over the past couple of days. And I tell you, Bontle, the way he was laughing, my heart just felt so full. So a little bit about the story. When twin sisters Karabo and Siphe overhear some workers complaining about strange going-ons at the construction site from where the new library is being built, Karabo is determined to find out more. Along with their friend Bandile and his trained police dog Zuko, they sneak into the building to investigate, but they soon stumble upon a much greater adventure than they had anticipated, with dancing ghosts, dangerous quests, and one very strange magical creature. Will Siphe be able to save her sister when Karabo, as usual, lands herself in big trouble? And what will happen when the five friends uncover the truth about the haunted library? This is a fun, easy to read adventure for middle graders and especially second language speakers. And as I said, not only middle graders, young toddlers, grade R, grade 1, grade 2, who can read for themselves will love this book. Now, Bontle, we're coming to you. This Anansi Mystery is such a delicious book. And as I said, my son enjoyed it very much. I was also chuckling along while I was reading. Can you share a little bit with our viewers what the book is about and what was the motivation behind it?
Well, I'm so happy that it was funny because I never think of myself as a really funny person or a very funny author. So this is good feedback. Thank you. The Haunted Library was really inspired by wanting to write something that was, I love mythology. I love African mythology. Anansi is an Akan trickster spirit from West Africa who I had always wanted to write about in the Shadow Chaser series, but it just sort of never fitted in with the story. And so I really jumped at the opportunity to find a story for him, and to find a story also that would put, again, Black children in a contemporary setting where they got to have an adventure. And this one, I think, was so much more fun than anything I've ever written, because it really is kind of silly almost. And that's representing the character of Anansi, the spider as well, who is a trickster god and who likes to have fun. So there is a lot of kind of crazy, surreal stuff. And I had a lot of fun with that.
Wow, I mean, one can actually tell from the way the story starts right up until the end. And I am so glad this is a mystery, which means, you know, the story continues. I can actually tell that there is book 2 coming out very, very soon. I cannot wait to see what the girls and Zuko as well as Bandile get up to. Now, Mogau, I am coming to you. I mean, writing a story is very, very different from illustrating it. What was Bontle's brief to you? I mean, you have like the most radical images in this book.
So I you know, for the most part, I feel like I had, you know, like quite a bit of freedom in terms of like how the characters look. So what I was trying to do, you know, for the characters was to make them look as not necessarily real, but as relatable as possible. I wanted to create characters that kind of looked like, you know, like the kids that I would see every day, you know, back home. So for me, it was, you know, for the most part, I was just kind of like trying to capture um, 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 the aesthetic of how Black kids look, because I feel like, you know, previously, just in terms of like illustrations and images and whatever, you know, like Black characters are not necessarily portrayed in a way that I feel like is, you know, relatable to myself. So for the most part, when I go into, you know, creating artwork, I try to, you know, create characters that I would kind of recognize, and that's basically what I was trying to go for. Like I said, there's a lot of freedom, but like that's what I was trying to do with the characters that we have for the book.
Thank you so much. And I mean, they are not only representative and relatable, they are also, you know, as I said, you know, the cover just took me back to when I was a young girl growing up in the townships and reading Veronica and Betty as well as Archie, and it just took me back, way back home, and it was such a fantastic read. Now, Bontle, coming back to you, I mean, you explore so many themes here. You know, we not only see the siblings Karabo as well as Siphe, you know, trying to get to the bottom of this mystery. You also explore friendships and the way the youth relates to animals as well, and also their huge sense of adventure. Why was it important for you to add a little bit of magicality to this story?
Well, you know, I think African children are really lucky in the sense that so much of their heritage, so many of the stories they hear from grandmothers, from aunties, etc., are always have kind of a supernatural element to it, right? Even our daily newspapers, looking at the sun or whatever, there's always some interesting story about a ghost haunting someone, or, you know, rocks falling on someone's house. And I love that stuff, right? I really love how in a sense, in our culture, in our collective consciousness, there's always this mix of the supernatural, of mystery, of unexplained things, alongside very normal everyday themes, which is why, you know, Siphe and Karabo, they live in a township. You know, they're dealing with issues of construction workers and tenders and, you know, politicians and whatever, right? Like all of those things are happening alongside magic. And I think that's very relatable to how many kids are growing up in South Africa.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. Mogau, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, man. I mean, like, basically just I think also one of the other important things is I feel like the environments in which we come from. I think just in terms of like what I tried to do with like images in general is like I said, I tried to kind of like create environments and characters that are relatable, because I feel like when 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 people read or they kind of like intake content, whether it be like on media or basically anywhere else, when you see yourself in places where you don't normally see yourself, it kind of opens up like like an array of possibilities in your brain. And so when you see people like yourself in certain stories that you kind of like look up to, it really kind of changes the like the narrative of stories, and also kind of like representation. I kind of think of it as, if you think of like Disney and like all the folklore stories of like all the princesses and all these fairy tales, it's basically kind of like what Bontle has done, but they've kind of like taken those stories and they put like characters that all of these kids can kind of relate to, and there's like a whole culture around it right now. I feel like every kind, because I'm in the animation industry, and I feel like every kind of nation has its own style, its own visual style and storytelling style. So I mean, you have like the Asian style, which is basically anime. You have the American, which is basically Marvel and DC, and then you have like the European, which is basically like Illumination and stuff like that. So and I feel like there's like right now there's like an opportunity to kind of create a space where you can create a style of storytelling and like visual development that is from Africa. And I feel like for the most part that's what I am trying to do with each and every project that I'm taking, and I felt like this was a good opportunity to kind of like explore that. But yeah, that's that's basically what I could add on to what
Yeah.
I was saying. Yeah.
No, and you are so right. I mean, you just mentioned that, there's an opportunity to create new styles of
Yeah.
bringing stories to, especially to the youth who, we really want them to get into the habit of
Yeah.
reading as a lifelong story. And the way the Haunted Library is presented, it is so different. I mean, Bontle, you use idioms in a very, very different ways. The story has no cliches as well. I mean, with fantasy stories, especially for young ones, there is always that we expect happily ever after, or the dragon is slayed, or something like that. The ending is always almost predictable, but you brought in the idioms, and you use them in a very, very different way. You gave them a twist that I found very, very refreshing. I think that is what my son was laughing at, when flying pigs now floated lazily over the rooftops, and because he is so young, he really he is not at a stage where he understands the use of cliche. Let's talk about the writing process of the story, and how all these cliches and idioms were placed just right in the story.
I think it was reflective of what I was doing at the time, professionally and personally, because at the time I was working on a really big, my day job is in corporate, and I was working on a really big deal, which was like 6 days a week kind of work. So I was really tired, and I have ADHD, and it was really quite out of control at the time. So I was really struggling to like focus, to concentrate, to get things done. And sort of, it was also, in the middle of, well, I suppose we're still in the middle of coronavirus, so I won't say in the middle of, but it was in between kind of travel bans. So I quickly like snuck off to South Africa to go visit my mom, and she kept on being like, no, go write, because, I had a deadline. And I just found myself being so like, oh, I don't want to write. I don't want to do this. My brain wants to go and watch TV or, you know, do something else. And so I had to make it fun for myself, right? I had to make it amusing. And so things like, you know, okay, pigs flying and crying over spilt milk and whatever, all of these things sort of came to my mind. And I kind of was just trying to explore them and trying to think about like, what would make this entertaining enough for my brain to want to do it, basically, right? And all these kind of in jokes as well, which, you know, there's I won't ruin any of the story, but there's a point at which some of the characters are dancing the Macarena, which if you are an adult, you get because you kind of, you know, you're sort of, you're going, oh my God, this is the video from the Macarena and this character is now wearing the clothes of the, like, what is happening? But if you're a child, they're just doing a fun dance, right? And so that the double layers of all of that, like there's a story for the kids because it's entertaining and whatever, but for the adults or for older children, there's also kind of an amusement that this thing that they do understand is coming out in a very different way. So I really just, I believe that, you know, reading, of course, we know is important. We know that nothing better influences the academic and educational progression of children more than reading at any age. But I also, you know, I'm always very passionate about this. Reading is not medicine, right? You shouldn't be doing it because it's good for you. You should be doing it because it's fun. And because you love the story and because you can't put it down. And you should be the kid who's like under the covers trying to read by, you know, I guess now phone camera lights or whatever it is. That is what we should be trying to get kids to be. And that's always at the heart of writing for me. And this was even more so because I also wanted to be that kid again who was so desperate to read this story and so desperate to write this story that, you know, I don't want to do anything else.
Wow. No, that is so spot on. Now, how in light of what Bontle has said, let's go back to the images. I mean, there is a scene in the story where Karabo and Siphe, you know, they come across these very huge, giant people, as well as animals. Now, in your reimagination of these characters, what were you going for? Because you also, I don't know whether there was an element of being realistic when it came to translating those characters into images.
Because I mean, like these are kind of like fictional. I feel like, you know, there was like a lot of imagination that had to go into it. So I remember having to go basically find a couple of images that I could find of like different characters. And so what I did was I just kind of combined. It was like what is that? It was like a Frankenstein of characters, basically. I took a bunch of characters and then I kind of combined different elements of how they look to create, I guess, like a new type of character. So yeah, in terms of visuals, there was you know, a little bit of like my own interpretation, a little bit of taking here and there from other visuals that I got inspired by to kind of, you know, like put it together. But at the same time, I know that it's also important to kind of create like images that are also like capturing. So I was just kind of hoping that whatever it is that I created was captivating enough to, I don't know, to kind of like push the imagination of whoever was reading it.
No, it was totally capturing. And I mean, when Langa read the story in over a couple of days, also because he's young, and I don't want him to get tired of reading. And as Bontle has said, you know, reading should also be fun, should also be a fun thing that a child wants to do. So while he was reading this over, I think he read it over 7 days, because he reads, I think, 10, 12 pages a day. He would come back and, ask me a couple of questions about things that really, to his 7-year-old mind, did not make sense. And Bontle, I want to bring you in this, because we spoke a lot about, because to him, those the idioms that threaded the story, they had to make sense, and to his young mind, they really did not make sense. Now, how important is it that our stories also are educational to the readership?
I mean, if they're accidentally, educational, I'm all for that. But if I reflect on kind of the stories that I like to read, and also even like the TV that I like to watch, Yo TV or KTV or whatever was the thing several decades ago. I think I was always trying to get information, and children's brains are always kind of a sponge, right? So whatever content there is, in whatever form it is, they're getting some information from it, whether it's visual, whether it's literary. It's always kind of this experience of learning almost accidentally, right? Like you're learning just through exposure. And so I'm always interested in that kind of educational writing, because I think the minute you try to put a moral in it, or you try to put like something that's serious or kind of overworked in that way, like kids can see that and it's not exciting for them, right? Like that's the sort of thing that immediately kind of turns them off. It's like, oh no, I can see what this is. This is the English teacher saying I should read this. This is mommy and daddy saying, yeah, it's good for you. So as much as I want kids to learn about things, I want them to learn through a process of curiosity, not curriculum, right? I want them to learn because their imagination is taking them to places, and now they're going, hey, what does that mean? Do pigs fly? Is that a thing? And then, kind of Google it and figure out, or ask a question or whatever. Like, it's supposed to stimulate imagination, debate, questions, curiosity, but not in a boring way.
Not in a boring way. Yeah, that's exactly that. Not in a boring way at all. Now, Mogau, I see that it says you are completing a master's degree in art in Paris, and how has that been like? The environment. How different is it, if ever? How different is it from here?
It's very different. It's different in like a lot of ways. For like in the educational side of things, I feel like it is basically, like the best place for me to kind of like improve or kind of like hone my skill in this industry that I wanna be in. One of the coolest things is that what they have here is, instead of having, like they don't have full-time lecturers. What they have is people from the industry, like people who are actually working at like the major top studios like Disney, Pixar, and all of these other animation studios, to come in for however long that they need to come in, maybe like a month or two, to kind of like teach on whatever I don't know, like department that they need to teach in, and then they kind of leave. So we basically learn from people who are kind of like spearheading the industry forward, which is really cool. Like it's a really good opportunity to also come in contact with, I don't know, it's so bizarre, like people you've looked up to your whole life. You're literally just like sitting next to them, and they're like giving you advice about like how to, I don't know, draw a leg or something. I don't know. It's so cool. I love it. The only thing though, of course, I don't know, like my French is not that good, so sometimes it's a bit of a problem, but it's nothing too hectic. How is it different from home? I don't know, man. It's Europe. It's
Is-
different from
Isn't
home,
it
definitely.
snowing? Isn't it snowing on you right now?
Right now, no, not yet, not yet. And you know
Oh,
what? Last year, last year I was so traumatized by the cold because I was like, this is like, how do you people live like this? This is horrible. But this year, like, I think I am both mentally and physically prepared for, this winter. Because last year it really got me. Like it was unexpected.
it's all in the
But
clothing, I have learned.
it's right, right.
They don't make clothes like that in Africa because we don't need clothes
Yeah,
like that. Like, once you
yeah,
have
yeah,
the
yeah. And
and the thermals and the layers and whatnot, everything's fine.
yes,
It's
yes,
interesting you're
yes.
talking about the model that is used in your course actually, because it really made me think how incredible would it be if we could, not even just for master's students, but even for undergrads, have that same
Yeah,
model for how we teach literature, for how we teach literacy, for how we teach education, where it would be, the best teachers coming in to teach you, or the, storytellers from the village coming in to talk
yeah,
about how they tell stories. And
yes,
like this would be such an interesting model if we could figure out a way to bring more practical and industry kind of education
yeah,
and knowledge even to how we think about literature. That would be so exciting, I think, and give so many more people who have so much to offer but not the not the PhD to go behind it, the
Yeah.
yeah,
opportunity to also engage in educating the next generation of creators in South Africa and Africa, I
yeah.
guess.
Definitely. I think it also kind of adds, like, I don't know, because these people are also practitioners within the industry. They kind of give you like really practical, like knowledge as to how to navigate the space as well. Because what I've realized sometimes is that, you know, yes, it is like, in the kind of art side of things, but there's also like a whole business side of it
Yeah.
that that people need to understand. And so when you're with people who have been doing this for like 2 decades, you really kind of get to understand how to kind of like situate yourself according to whatever outcome that you would like for yourself, in the future. You get to know how to kind of situate yourself. You get a better understanding of what to expect, from the industry. I don't know. It's just really practical, and I think you're right in saying that it would be much more useful if we got like practitioners to go to like institutions to actually impart their knowledge. It is yeah. It's
It would be
it's
really
it's
cool.
really
I
cool, man.
think
Oh,
Yeah.
as a mix also, right? Because I'm not slating academics in any way. My sister's in the academic field herself at the moment. So,
Yeah.
I absolutely believe in the contribution of people who are really seriously looking at the scholarship and this literature. I think you really need a mix of both, right? So,
We both. Yeah.
UCT, VET, UKZN, hit us up. We're available. um, yes, I think that would be really, really fun. Also, and the interesting thing about this business part of it is, sorry, Lorraine, I'm
yeah.
just
No,
thinking of something.
this is
Um, I,
fantastic.
I'm always interested because people are always asking me like, how do you get published? And I'm like, I have no idea. Because in a
Yeah.
weird way, like I haven't actually learned the industry of publishing. Because
Mhm.
Yeah.
I wasn't joking when I was saying, "Oh, Lorraine, it's nice to see you." Da, da, da. Because publishing is so small in South Africa that you kind of know all the even, and children's literature is even smaller than that. You kind of know everybody.
Yeah.
You've seen at this event, and
Yep.
you've whatever. And so even how I got published and whatever was through not knowing people because they were my uncles, whoever, but just because I kept on seeing them all the time. I kept
Mhm.
on making these jokes. They were like, "Oh, maybe you could write these jokes," and I was like, "Oh, I am actually a writer." So I don't know if I know enough about the business side of publishing and of writing novels and how to make a career out of that. It's a really interesting one for me because even when people, you're asking like what brief did I give Mogau? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm the writer. I don't give anyone a brief about anything,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
I am just one step in this value chain, this supply chain. And
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
thing, I guess people want to imagine that writing and publishing is so romantic and it's all like, my creative process. But like, it really is a collaboration between so many different people because it is a business, because it is an industry. And I think I'm sure that I know that there are publishing degrees out there that I'm sure teach this. But it'd be really interesting, I think, also to teach the other people who are involved in the process, the editors, the writers, the illustrators, also about the business of publishing.
This is true because I feel like sometimes like you don't really know how to navigate a space if you don't know what you want to be within that space, right? Because for instance, okay, cool. So within the art environment, obviously it's like, you know, you have to be really good, like technically, you have to know how to draw, paint, all these things. But then like you kind of neglect, you know, all the other things that go into like an animation project. You need like people who can do environments. You obviously need writers. You need like a producer who's gonna go out there and actually sell the project. You need a director. There's like all these different components that make up the whole thing. You know, it's like a whole ecosystem that kind of operates like that. And so the more you know about the space, you kind of like you kind of see more opportunities for yourself. And I feel like yeah, like it's just you know, it's yet another opportunity to kind of like, you know, bridge the gap between that and, you know, like people who don't know and are interested and would like to know. And yeah, it's just one of those things that are we need to kind of like think about, you know, in future in terms of like education and the practical world of the industry, I think.
Now, Bontle, as a leader of digital transformation, and Mogau has just spoken about, you know, the animation process and all the components that go into digitizing images. What would that look like if that is something that you were to think around bringing to the continent, to the youth, just as a skills development? What would that look like from someone who has vast experience in digital spaces?
Well, you know, I think the point Mogau makes about being able to find yourself within the industry is really important, right? Because there are so many different, I mean, digital is a very broad church of things. It could be data. Even the work that Mogau does technically is digital, right? And it is digital work. So I think what is most important is creating that awareness of what it even means, right? Because I think we say things imagining that people understand, like this is what an editor does, this is what a graphic designer does, this is what a UX designer does, but people don't. I mean, I didn't know what those things meant in high school, for example, right? And this is, I think, is one of the biggest things, is that I went to a school which was like a good school, but it was not a fancy school, right? It was not the kind of school, let's say, where UCT came and did presentations and whatnot, right? So it was very much sort of like, let me guess and see which thing I want to study, because, you know, teachers sort of said, yeah, you're smart, you should go study accounting, right? But there wasn't really an understanding of what that even meant. Like, what does a chartered accountant even do on a day-to-day basis, right? And I think that the same is true for digital careers as well, is that if we can invest a little bit more time in creating forums and spaces to get kids in high school, at the beginning of high school, by the way, not the end, because when you're in matric, it's too late to say, oh, you need to do maths and science in order to go do this. Like, it's too late then. But at the beginning of high school, to talk to them about these sort of things, I think is really important. And it's something which I did when I was at McKinsey. I organized a couple of career days with some people who worked at McKinsey, because people had really varied backgrounds, right? It was like, this person had been an actress, this person had been a poet, this person had been an engineer, this person had been a scientist, and they just kind of happened to go into consulting, right? And so being able to go to the township and go to libraries and do talks at schools about, like, hey, this is what a chemical engineer does every day. And this is what a software developer does every day. Does this sound like something that would be fun for you in a way that's kind of accessible and easy to understand? I think that would make a huge difference for skills development, right? Because there are opportunities that are available. There are scholarships, there is funding, there is whatever, but it's really hard to get that stuff if you don't even know what it is, that it's interesting, that you could be good at it. There's no exposure to it, and that's the challenge.
Mogau, you studied multimedia at UJ. How did
Yeah.
you get to know about it as a degree, and most importantly, as a viable career?
I mean, look, I I didn't know it was a viable career to start off with. All I know from high school was that I am gonna do something, within the arts. Because, I guess I should mention that like I went to like an art school, like in high school, I went to the National School of the Arts in Braamfontein. So that kind of like started, the whole thing for me, because our teachers there could kind of, they had like certain connections within, like there was definitely like more, I guess, like information that I could get, regarding the industry, because like some of our teachers used to be like, graphic designers, or they just used to be practitioners, right? And so that is most probably why I kind of, had the idea that I could do it. But like I didn't actually know anyone who I actually looked up to, because most of the time, for instance, if you wanted to become like a musician or whatever, there's a ton of musicians out there that you can look up to and that you would one day like to work with. But I don't feel like there was such a thing, especially within like the digital space, because I feel like animation is like a very young industry in South Africa. It's still like growing. I think only right now it's kind of like gaining momentum, and it's, we're starting to get like more projects, more international projects, Netflix and like all these other projects. But yeah, like previously I did not know. It felt like going into a dark room and hoping that I grab onto something useful. But I think the key thing within that was I was always like, I always thought to myself that it kind of doesn't matter what I choose to do. If I just try to be really, really good at that thing, then there's like no other way for me to like fail in it. So I guess the only thing that I tried to do when I was, still studying was to just try to be the best at it, because normally people who are really good at what they do normally succeed at the thing. And so, yeah,
It's
I just, yeah.
it's interesting for me because like I didn't even know the National School of the Arts was a thing that existed until I was
Okay.
like in university, right? And people, you don't really realize like how big the world is, because if when you're a child, your world is really only as big as the people you know in your immediate vicinity. And this is always something which I really struggle with about people saying they want to be writers, because let's not be facetious about it, right? Being a writer in South Africa for very few people is a full-time job, because it just is not, when you talked about viability, there was a bit of a knowing smile from me, because, financially, really difficult to have a viable career in publishing and literature and literacy in our country and on our continent. And I'm always really torn because, when I went to go study, it wasn't even an option for me to study literature, realistically, right? Because I needed to get a bursary to go study a degree. They don't give very many bursaries in literature and in English literature, whatever, at least not at the undergrad level. And so for me, it wasn't even an option to be a writer, right? I really genuinely thought this is something which, rich people get to go and do, but I have responsibilities. I've got a family, right? Like I want to look after my mom one day. This is a pipe dream. And so I think there's also something about educating people that it's not an all or nothing kind of thing. You know what I mean? You want to be an illustrator, you don't have to just be a comic book illustrator and only do that. You know what I mean? Like you can also do graphic design. You can also, like, there's other things you can do. And similarly, if you want to be a writer, you don't have to be a full-time writer. Fantastic if you get to do that. But some people actually enjoy getting to review or be journalists or be academics, or like me, have a job that's completely outside of that and still get to be a writer. That is possible. It is difficult, but it certainly is possible to keep that hustle going. And I think there is something that's very valuable also in making people aware of the fact that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You don't have to give up your dreams or go broke and just go like, yes, I'm going to do that, right? Because I didn't have the confidence of Mogau, to be honest, at that age, to be like, I'm going to go be the best. I was like, I'm going to do it and maybe people won't hate it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I think it wasn't necessarily confidence. It was just like one of those things where it's like I am good at this one thing, and so for me, like okay, I'm good at it, and I feel like if I try to do something else, I'm gonna fail dismally because first of all, I don't like doing other things. So I was like, this thing that I like doing, there has to be something that I find. I don't know. There has to be something out there. Like there has to be a space for it that I can like create like my whole life around it. So for me, it was like a do or die thing. Because like I would do this even if I wasn't being paid for it. Like I feel like I would be willing to. I mean, of course, I don't want to be like this, but I would be like one of those struggling artists. Hope
I
like
mean,
like you know,
don't speak that
luckily
into
I'm not.
the universe
Luckily,
because it could still
no, no,
happen.
no, no, no. No, I'm not saying I'm not saying that. Like I said, I would never want this to happen. But I feel like if I had to do this for free, I would actually do it because it is the only thing that I feel like I'm good at and that I can just do over and over and over again
Yeah.
until the end. I'm
Yeah,
just thankful that you know like everything is kind of like working out the way it is. Yeah, and I just have to keep like learning and you know trying to you know create more opportunities for myself and then people around me.
I would probably pay people to be able to write. It's not even like I do it. I would probably pay for the privilege of being able to write books, to be honest.
Yeah.
Wow, wow. And also, I mean, there is still a lot of fear associated with being in the creative space. Also, I think it's because we have, there's very limited knowledge, Mogau has just brought in a very different dimension. Not most parents know that there are other avenues within their creative space. And also, Bontle, the way writing has always been positioned in movies. People have money, they go to Tuscany, they
Oh
eat
man,
grapes, and
there's a Netflix movie
you
right
know
now where a writer buys a castle, and I was like, "What are you writing?
Yeah,
Are you writing
what
like?"
are you guys writing that is bringing so? And these are people who write like 2 books in 50 years, and they're bathing in olive oil, and it's all so romantic. No one is starving, and you just want to be that person. And real life says, no, you have to find a job that is going to make it possible for you to write at some point during the week. And yeah, but you say, it's not an all or nothing thing. We just take our joys and happiness wherever we can. Now, I don't know I hope you have your copy of the Haunted Library. I know there are a lot of parents who are still looking for presents for the tweenies, and I just wanted you to read a page or two just to encourage them to order online. It's raining today. I wouldn't advise going to the shops, but order because it is. I mean, look at it. But guys, iboning, ishebing, laibon. Okay, it looks like Christmas. It does. It looks like wrapping paper.
Oh man. Okay. So I wish you'd warned me in advance, but I will read. I think from a couple of pages to give a sense. It's after the kids decide they're going to sneak out
Okay.
and go to this haunted library to go and investigate. And it's as they're walking on. So they walked in silence to the site. The new library was being built on an empty plot of land next to the field where some of the boys would play soccer after school. So Bandile knew the way well. They walked quickly. It was so early that the streets were empty apart from the taxis picking up a few people who had to work on the weekends. They turned into Albertina Street and immediately saw the construction site. The unfinished library sat at the end of the road. It had a roof, but the grey bricks of the structure were naked without any paint, and the outside brick wall had yet to be built. Instead, a tall metal fence snaked around the plot with a big lock and chain on the front gate. Karabo walked up to the gate and gave it a testing shake. It didn't move. It didn't even wiggle. What are you doing, Karabo? Bandile asked. Trying to get in. We made it all the way here. We should at least have a look inside, maybe through a window, she added quickly, seeing Siphe's face scrunch up at this new suggestion. Karabo, seriously, there's no way to get in. We should go home, Siphe said, as she watched Karabo examine the fence more closely. You give up too easily, sis, Karabo said, starting to walk away. Siphe stayed where she was as Karabo walked further along the fence towards the right-hand side of the construction site. At least one of us should go with her, Bandile told Siphe as Karabo disappeared around the corner towards the back of the building. Siphe folded her arms, but she nodded once. Zuko, stay, boy, Bandile told the dog before he took off to catch up with Karabo. Siphe couldn't keep her legs still. Her eyes filled with tears, but she looked up and blinked them away, just like Goko had told her. Now was not the time for crying. She tapped her foot on the concrete of the pavement, and Zuko looked up at her with big eyes. Don't look at me like that, Zuko, Siphe told the dog softly. It's not my fault my sister can't stay out of trouble. Why do I always get dragged into her wild ideas, huh? Goko is going to kill us if we aren't home in time for breakfast, and she told us not to. Siphe's words were cut off when she heard Bandile scream from somewhere inside the construction site. Buy it.
Thank you so much. And this is the construction site that they were looking into. Beautiful graphic right there.
Yeah, my favorite is actually this riding on
the pig. Yeah.
No explanation why. You have to buy the book to find out.
Yes, please get copies for everyone. I enjoyed this book so much, and I am definitely getting it for all my nieces and nephews, which is a lot. My mother has 10 grandkids, so Jan is going to find me very broke, but definitely going for this one. Bontle and Mogau, we have reached the end of this conversation. Is there any last words for the lovely children out there and their parents and guardians as well?
I think all I would say is that reading and buying books and things are not things that should just be something at Christmas time. It should be something, for the whole year. Children's books especially. I know that there are some other adult books, non-fictions, whatever, which are quite expensive at certain bookstores. But children's books, I think our publishers really work so hard to make them moderately affordable for people. Support libraries, after you've read the book, please give it to some libraries so that other kids get the chance to read it. And continue to support the industry, right? Because the money is not just going to myself and Mogau, it is going to the publicists, the editors, the copy people, there's a whole value chain of people that you're supporting with that. And it allows us to be able to write more books, which is the most important thing. And we would love to tell more stories.
Yeah. I mean, basically what Bontle said, I feel like I'm about to repeat. But also, I think, like, I'm not necessarily sure what to say, like regarding this, because like I have more questions than things to say. For instance, when you told me that your son was kind of like, like finished the book in a week or two, I was just kind of like wondering, because I just kind of like got into this industry of creating books, and so I have like more questions than anything. I feel like for instance, how do you get like your kids to like read so much, because I remember like myself as a kid, I did not read. I liked watching things, and like the only type of books that I liked were picture books. Even to this day, I like picture books. Like I obviously like taken like most of my information from like certain types of videos.
Yeah.
But then I feel like obviously like reading is really important, and And I wonder how you kind of like start that whole thing from like a young age. Do you like read to them, or do you like give them books? Like, how do you know what a kid likes to read? Like I don't know. What do you do? Like, how do you
Here's
do
the
that?
thing. So one, graphic novels are completely a legitimate thing, and there should be more graphic novels written in our country, because I think
Yeah,
people
yeah.
do love reading stories with pictures, let's be honest.
They do.
But two, how about we write another book? I'll just quickly write another book. You can quickly illustrate it. Lorraine, you come back. We'll have another conversation in a couple of weeks, and you can ask.
Okay.
Of course.
Yeah, yeah.
How to answer your question? So I have spent half of my life reading. I've always been the child who read. My grandmother bought us books, and because my mother was a nurse, you know, nurses, they work 7 to 7, which means she's away from home 14, 15 hours, you know, of the day. So we spent a lot of time with my granny and Komidolands, and after all the chores and the framing of the stoop, then you know you can't really go out in the streets to play. So we read, and that's where my love of reading began, and I have spent the last 20 years reading. So that's the job, Mogau. The job is reading. It doesn't pay, but it just pays in happiness, and it fuels my spirit. Now getting Langa to read was it was lockdown. So Langa started grade R, and then lockdown happened. And before then, I've always read to him, and he naturally gravitated to books. But lockdown forced me to teach him how to read. I remember someone was interviewing me and asking me, who taught you to read as a child? And I would love to think I was born a reader, but somebody taught me, right? And I only realized when I had to be the teacher, because Langa was 5 and online, which was crazy, crazy, crazy. And we had to start A-E-I-O-U. And I was there and I'm like, oh my God, A-E-I-O-U, this child is 5, can't write. The pencil grip. How do you hold a pencil? I don't know. I nearly went insane. But because he's always been surrounded by books, he took to reading, and it's not just talent. You know, we also have a routine. If you wake up early, reach for a book, man. Just read for a book. No one is gonna call you at 7. No one. Even if you're 15, there's no one calling you at 7. No one is looking for you at 7. Reach for a book, and we have a very flexible timetable. And he's at an age where he says, Mama, I need downtime, and reaches for a book. So I don't have silver and gold, but I got books. The boy just reaches for books, and makes me happy, man. Makes me happy.
I have so many more questions myself now, because I'm like, what? You taught a 5-year-old to read during lockdown?
I am so proud of myself.
There are so many more questions now. So really, actually, we need to have this conversation
Yeah,
again.
we
I
definitely
myself
do.
am now like, what?
I couldn't believe it. I mean, my first week of school, because the lockdown happened beginning of March. So first week of school, around the second, third week in Jan, this child moves from creche to this big school. Yes, the school is small, but for Langa, it's huge. You come from creche, there is 5, 6 of you in class. Suddenly there is like 18, 19. You have to know the names and the uniform. I nearly went insane. And then lockdown happened. And I was like, I'm gonna start drinking whiskey in these coffee mugs, because how am I expected? But we did it. And obviously the school was a huge support. And it took a lot from everyone in the family, but it's doable. It's doable. And I'm very proud that we spend our Saturday mornings after breakfast reading, and then do whatever you want to do, come back. And he has this thing about bedtime story, and sometimes I am exhausted, I don't want to do it, and I'm like, Bongani, it's your turn. Bongani said, I did it yesterday, do it the whole month. You do it the whole month. And he can't sleep without a bedtime story.
That's lovely.
That's amazing.
That's lovely, né? Thank you.
Really
I'm so
nice.
proud of it. Actually, I'm so proud of myself.
Yeah, I'm proud of you too.
Oh, guys, thank you so much. Here is the book. It looks like wrapping paper. It does. I just wrapped Bongani's present with, I wish it was here. Okay, it's very far. But it does look like wrapping paper. It's all shiny. I love shiny books, especially for grubby little hands. You can just take a faduk and just wipe it off, and it is as good as new. But guys, books are not centerpieces. Now let the children use them. I let Langa write in them, man. I mean, that's how you develop a relationship with books. It's your book, you know. If you have a stake in a book, you will read it, you will take care of it. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Helene, thank you for this, for organizing this. NB and Taffelberg, Human and Rousseau. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much, Lorraine.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.